All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get us rolling here. Figured we might be a little light on participation tonight just because it's a busy time of year, but we are recording these and posting them to YouTube, so hopefully we'll get some people to absorb the information. I know this panel is going to be thrown out because we got a really awesome panel tonight. So, um, wanted to just open up by thanking all you guys for being a part of this. And tonight's focus is going to be on postseason preparation, on staying focused when on a long drawn out season, and then also peaking at the right time. So those of us who have been in coaching for a while know that there's ebbs and flows in the season, but trying to get your team to peak and be at the highest best performance of the season at the right time is challenging. So I first want to introduce our panel tonight. I've got Rush McCauley. He's in his 30th year coaching high school basketball in Indiana. He's a DePaul University alum. He's led programs at Crawfordsville, Frontier, and Harrison High Schools, including 16 years as boys varsity coach at Frontier, the past 8 seasons as varsity girls coach at Harrison. He's also in his 28th year teaching high school social studies and has coached track and golf, serving as a licensed track meet starter. So thank you, Coach. We also have Travis Connor. He is in his fourth year at Princeton Community High School. Prior to that, he was a head coach at Vincennes Lincoln for 10 seasons. I've gotten the joy of coaching against him and Coach McCauley, and had some fun battles with both of them. Coach Varga is the head coach at was the head coach at South Bend, Washington for the last 8 years. He directed the Panthers to a record of 109-84 during that span. That includes a 2023 3A sectional championship and NIC championship. He moved to Jimtown this past season, and he is currently 8-3, and that is on the boys' side. And then we've got Coach Krebs. He is in his ninth season as the head girls basketball coach at Warsaw High School. Last season, he led the Lady Tigers to a 26-2 record and a state runner-up finish. He was named the 24-25 IBCA District 1 Coach of the Year, and he is a three-time NLC Coach of the Year. His Warsaw teams have compiled an overall record of 158-56, including 5 straight undefeated Northern Lakes Conference titles. Krebs was the coach of the 2025 Indiana Junior All-Stars. So, quite the star-studded group that we got tonight. So, I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into our first topic, and that is postseason readiness. So, I'm going to let you guys kind of just flow, but I wanted to start you guys off with what indicators tell your team or tell you that your team is trending in the right direction as you're approaching this postseason. So I'll let any of you guys open it up and we can all just kind of feed off of each other. So go right ahead. Coach Krebs, let's start with you. What do you think?
I think the big thing for us is, are we keeping our kids wanting to show up? Because when you get in that long season, that part of that readiness is just, are they wanting to come back? You get a lot of those kids that they're just ready to be done. By the time they get to the middle of January, end of January, especially those kids that don't have the role that maybe they thought they were going to get early in the year, and trying to keep them just locked in and wanting to come back. One of the things I think we learned last year is we're only going to be as strong as our weakest link, and those kids have to want to keep showing up. And you know you you can look at the scores, you can look at all those things, but none of that really tells me if we're ready for postseason. It's more about, are we actively engaged? Are we still connected with the group? How are we handling the adversity that we're going to run into? We're going to run into some Tuesday night. We play Homestead. That's going to tell me a lot. Don't care about the win or the loss. I care about how we're going to respond to that. Um, and hopefully we have done our job for the previous 21 games, to help them get to where they want to go. Handling, as you said, the ebbs and the flows, the good and the bad, and just staying the course. Um, not in my mind, if we're not ready, we're in trouble. In a sense of, by the time we get to this point of the season, all of that preparation was done in the previous months of the season. Now we're just seeing the results of that. Um, it's going to be very hard to change that one way or another at this point of the season, in my mind. I'm just, maybe you guys have a different opinion of that, but um, for me, I like where we're at. I think we're still locked in. I think we're still wanting to show up. Obviously, winning helps that. I mean, everybody wants to show up when you're being successful in most of your games. Um, and I think we are trending in the right direction. They're starting to understand where we're at. And I'll just throw this out here. The one thing that's keeping us locked in right now is we have marbles in a jar, and we have one marble for each day that we have left in the season. Every day we take a marble out so our kids can start to see this is all the time that we have left together with this group on this journey. Um, I actually learned that from my dad when my daughter got into high school. He gave me 4 jars of marbles with 52 marbles in each of them. And every week I would take a marble out so I could visually see how much time I had left. And so we did that with our group this year, and we're down to about 15 marbles guaranteed to that first sectional game. So for them, that visual reminder of we're never going to be on this journey again with this group is a big thing for us.
That's awesome. I agree. I think a visual reminder is very important because January is a long month, at least on the girls' side. I'm sure it's, February for the most of you boys coaches. But Coach McCauley, what do you think on, you've coached on both sides, so how do you want to play off that?
I think you have to manage the dog days of whether it be January or February. Um, a lot of it comes down to just knowing your team, knowing your kids, what makes them tick. Um, Understanding, when it's a day you need to go hard versus maybe it's a day you come in, get your reps and get them out 20 minutes earlier than you usually do. Um, I think a lot of people get lost in, we have the gym till from 3 to 5. We got to use every minute of it. We talk a lot about, being efficient with our time. And if that means we get our work done earlier than what I've got the practice plan scheduled for, I have no problem leaving early. And when you're in the middle of January in the girls' season, or you're in the middle of February in the boys' season, I think walking out of the gym 15 minutes earlier than expected is a good refresher for the kids. They see that as a positive. And even the coaches, you feel like you're stealing a little bit of your evening back. And I think that helps keep kids focused, and fresh because you don't want to leave your legs on the practice floor going down the stretch of the season.
It's awesome. I agree with you 1000%. I think, throwing them a bone every now and then, valuing that rest time late in the season is hugely important. So, great points, Coach. Coach Connor, I want to ask you, what areas do you prioritize or work on tightening as the season progresses and you're getting closer to your postseason? What do you focus on most?
Yeah, first I just want to echo what Coach Krebs said in terms of, those roles. So important throughout the season. And obviously at this point in the year, those roles are pretty much identified, at least from the coaching standpoint. And obviously the importance of communicating that, with your team. Of course, I'm on the girls' side. So roles, as you know, coach, are extremely important, making sure that they understand. So there's no jealousy, no, hey, why am I not getting touches kind of thing. And so I think it's really important down the stretch to identify what those roles are, kind of have meetings again with kids, making sure that everybody understands, and then come back together, right, with everybody so that everybody understands each other's roles, throughout. So then you kind of fine tune. Right. And so, we've got one kid that's her main role down the stretch is rebounding. So we're going through some different angles, and this is how you can get, up your offensive rebounding ticks. We got another kid whose job is to be a defensive stopper. So she's getting lots of reps right now. just in terms of getting turns and forcing that we can. Another kid, her primary role is going to be a shooter down the stretch. So she's getting more reps. So you just kind of take those roles, go off that, and try to really figure it out what you need, from this kid. Obviously, you're going to have kids that have multiple roles, and just try to get as many reps as you can. But also, what coach just stated in terms of rest, right? You got to have those fresh legs down the stretch. And when you're playing right now, we're in the middle. We just came off of 4 games, 8 days, all 4 road trips. So, we'll back off as we get into tomorrow a little bit and see if we can't, get re-energized going forward. But I think it's so important to make sure they know what the role is down the stretch and then really rep whatever it is you want from them when it gets to tournament time.
Yeah, great points. I think like you said, especially with young athletes, knowing their roles are important. Sometimes you have to humble them a bit and remind them of some
Yes.
things, but yeah, the reps versus rest conversation. I think when you're a younger coach, you don't realize the importance of backing it off as the season progresses because just as tired as you are, the kids are too. So excellent points. Coach Varga, I want to ask you, what is like a late season adjustment that you make that you feel like makes a real difference for your program, your guys?
Yeah, I think like a lot of you guys have hit that mark of roles and things, and I think we all hit the ground running in the beginning of the season where we were, rushed to put in this and rushed to put in that because you only have 2 weeks before the scrimmage and almost 2.5 weeks before your game. But I think as the season goes on, you've seen everything that you possibly could see from a defensive mindset. So we spend a lot of time. Not getting our reps in, but we continue our kind of our weight room maintenance during that time, and we definitely spend a lot more time in the film room and getting shots up, rather than kind of in that spirit of going up and down and going hard, as coach has said. It's about picking and choosing which days you can go and which you can't. We've spent a lot of time. We'll dive into a book, later in. So like right now we're doing the mental Jay Billis's mental toughness, and we'll dive into book studies a little bit and the mental side and more film. And we've started incorporating days where we just really take deep stretches and ice baths and different things where we're really trying to take care of our bottom mentally and physically. And then we make the tweaks in the film room and out there that we want to do. But as the season progresses, like you said, it's tiring, and it's about time management with them as much as you can during the week, but still trying to stay on your routine. So we become, I think, a little bit more routine based throughout the week as we start getting more and more games into it. Like Coach said, they played 4 games in 8 days. That's a lot. So your routine is a little bit different than your daily routine or weekly routine for that week. So I think the biggest thing is just time management and making sure the kids are taking care of their bodies. And sickness is real at this time. So we spend time, whether it's eat fruit or whatever, having in the locker room. So trying to tweak it as much as possible. And it's all about what your group knows and what they don't. So
Good stuff. I think that bringing up the mental side of it just as is just as powerful as the physical. It's a great segue actually into our next topic. So, maintaining focus and mental sharpness. It's very challenging with young people. They got a lot on their plate. They're balancing a lot of different roles in their life. So, um, the next section here, I'm just going to kind of lead you guys off here is like, how do you keep players mentally engaged after a long season? And what tweaks do you make, and how do you get them re-energized and excited about the postseason? And just what tools do you have in your kits that you keep these kids focused? And let's switch it up a little bit. I'm going to start with Coach Connor. What you got here?
Darn, coach, I was waiting to see what the smart folks said about this, and I was writing down. Um, you know, First off, Coach Krebs again, like, man, I like the idea of the marbles, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose my marbles at some point during the season. So I don't know about that, but the visual is really cool, and I've already stolen that one there. That's coming out tomorrow. Um, For me, I think a lot of it is joy, right? I'm on the girls' side. I heard Coach Walls a long time ago at Louisville State that the difference between a guy and a girl is a guy is just happy to win, and a girl has to be happy to win. And I've taken that one to heart for the years, and I've realized that we've got to instill joy. So it's a lot of team bonding activities. Some of our cardio stuff becomes races in different ways. Old school dribble tag, like you're back down to a fourth grader, but you'd be amazed how much fun that could be at the end of a practice. And just find different ways to create joy. And I like the book idea as well. That's good stuff as well. I've got a few kids right now we're sharing that with, but I like the idea of sharing that out with the whole team. And then there's meals together. That's always a winner. As far as it goes, include film within the meal so you're effective with that time management. But I think it's so important just to keep finding ways to compete because kids, I mean, athletes, they want to win. So you keep including those in your practice plans and keep finding ways for them to realize that they need each other. And then ultimately, if they buy into connecting and serving each other, then you could have something special this time of year. And, I walk around, I don't know why, coach, and I'm not about to sing right now. But as it gets to this time of year, sectional time, that it's the most wonderful time of the year to me. I just sing that in pre-practice, and that's kind of the yearly tradition or whatever. And the kids kind of get used to, oh, there he goes again, and kind of get that mindset, right? That hey, this is what we do. Get ready for postseason play, and let's go cut some nets down is the hope and goal. But ultimately, as Coach Krzyzewski, alludes to in his book, we just want that season to end with tears, right? Preferably tears of joy, cutting some nets down, but if not, just tears of sadness that the journey is over. So we really stress that word journey a lot, and just to understanding that the coach has already hit on it, but this journey is rounding down towards the end of the year, and we want to make sure we kind of hang on to each other as long as we can.
That's awesome. Yep. That's what I miss the most about coaching is those special moments. So
Yes.
absolutely. Um, Coach McCall, you mentioned that you'd lost some tough ones close at the end of the game. What in your years of experience has helped the most with keeping your kids focused or refocusing your kids after tough losses, especially late in the season as you're approaching the postseason? Just kind of getting them back together and refocused on what your common goal is.
We always talk about you got to live to play the next play. And in games, I mean, we've lost 5 games in the last minute where we've had the lead in the last minute. Um, a lot of times, we dwell on the negative. And there's times you just got to go in the locker room after the game, and, move on. Whether it be, I mean, like we lost one a week ago Friday, where we had to lead and then we had to turn around and play at 4 o'clock on Saturday. And instead of dwelling on the negative of not finishing the game on Friday night, I just moved on. Here's what we got to do Saturday. And realizing there's still a lot to play for. And we apply that, even single plays. We've all had kids that, they make a mistake and they get so frustrated that they can't transition back to the other end. They make a turnover, and then they make the mistake of not getting back on defense, or they immediately commit a foul and compound a mistake. So we always talk to them. You got to live to play the next play, and going into the postseason, you have to understand that there has to be a sense of urgency because you can't always live to play the next play in the postseason. They have to understand that every possession is important, but I think as you go down the stretch in January and then in February, being able to separate even when you play well, you have to be able to move on and get prepared for your next one. So I mean we constantly are on them, hey, win the next play, move on, and I think basketball more so than any other sport. We have a lot of softball players. You throw a pitch and then you wait 30 seconds. Football, you run a play and then you go get in the huddle. Basketball, you automatically got to transition from whatever happens at one end to the other end with no break and no time to mentally reload. So, um, living to play that next play, I think becomes very important, as you maintain and progress through the season.
Would you agree it's more challenging on the girls' side than the boys, or do you think it's equally as challenging?
Um, it's different. I think a boy can make that transition. I missed a shot, I made a mistake. They get mad at themselves, and you'll see a full head of steam getting to the other end. Girls, a lot of times they take that mistake to heart and feel like they've let you down or let their team down. And maybe it takes them a second or two to, get themselves transitioned to the other end. So I don't know if it's harder or easier with, either gender. I think they handle it differently. And sometimes managing how they handle it, is sometimes, the hardest part, so that they don't compound, a mistake.
I was notorious for that. I think that's why I utilized all five of my fouls every single game. So, um, Coach Krebs, Coach Varga, either one of you want to kind of pitch in on what you guys do to keep your teams focused or get them refocused and the most wonderful time of the year?
I think, I mean, for me, is keep them focused is we're able to watch a little bit more film than we are earlier on in the season, and taking a little bit more time to watch ourselves, and really using the statistics behind what we're doing and what we're trying to do. I've been very blessed here at Gymtown to have some guys that do very, really good stuff with stats. So we're able to kind of look at where we're giving up points and where we're not giving up points and how well we're rebounding and how well we're scoring in possessions as far as our points per possession and things like that. So I think for at least from the boys' side, for them to visually be able to see things that they need to improve on and work on has really kept them motivated. Um, and as you get older, you have seniors and stuff, they want to play in college basketball. So that can always be a motivator too, if they haven't obviously been recruited. So, um, but yeah, that, and then just, finding little games and challenges that, they can find success in practice. We keep tab of how many guys, sprints who win sprints for the week and little things as far as, rebounding and those for the weeks that or we give them a focus in practice and give them a winner and things like that. And but I think statistically, with this year and having such a young group, it's been really a blessing for them to see the not only the film but the statistics of what they're doing and how it can impact the game to kind of motivate them to be better. And we talk about all the time. We don't want to be too high or too low or be anywhere in the middle as long as we can continue to get better individually and the team will take care of itself and the wins will take care of itself.
Yeah, good stuff. I think it's tough. Sometimes some schools will have built-in statisticians for you, and if you are a young coach and you don't have that, it is important to find that for sure, because it can make a huge difference for your program. So thanks, Coach. Appreciate that. Coach Krebs, I kind of want to tailor a question towards you. I was fortunate enough for a couple of my seasons to have a strong showing in a season and then return a lot of talent. And the pressure was on. So you guys made it to state. You came up just short last year, and I'm sure there's a natural hunger in all of your kids to want to improve upon that, and become state champions. And you guys have had a great season this year. But I'm sure your girls hear a lot of noise in the background about how good they are, and that there's always haters out there too. So how do you keep your girls grounded and focused and hungry and working toward that state championship this year and trying to get some revenge?
We actually sat down in June when we go to team camp. We go to team camp and it's just us. We take our incoming seventh, incoming eighth, freshman JV varsity. So we went to Huntington this past year and we basically just rent the facility. And one of the first things we do is we asked them this past June, how is our community going to measure our success? Because I think it's important that we understand how our community is going to measure success this year. Coming off a state finals run, having two Indiana junior all-stars back, a lot of things going on. So we define success as seen by our community, but then we also defined how do we define success in this locker room? Because it's going to be totally different how we define it versus our community. And we come up with a definition of success. And once we reach that definition in our team room, the next question I ask them is I need each of you to identify 3 possible roadblocks to us achieving this definition of success. And I have them each write those on post-it notes. So each kid has 3 post-it notes, and I have them bring them up and put them on the wall. One side of the wall is relationship or people related. One side is basketball or sport related. And then what I do is I actually take those and I try to group them into 5 or 6 major categories. So, for example, outside influences, drama, selfishness, whatever it may be, I'm able to take these and group them, and that drives all of our team building, culture building all year long. Because if these are the things the girls are telling me we need to be aware of, probably need to be aware of them. And I think we often try to define for them what the outside noise and distractions are going to be, but I want to hear from them. So once we have those and I group them into 5 or 6 major groups, we share them at the parent meeting at the beginning of the year in a way that says, I need you, I'm asking you as parents to help us eliminate these distractions. And those 5 or 6 things get reminded to the girls on a normal basis. These are things you guys told me. I'm just trying to help you stay focused. And so that's one of the things that we continue to do just all year long. It's not about it's January and let's try to fix this. It's let's weed the garden all year long. And we had an opportunity to do that. We went down to the Sneakers for Santa event, got beat by Jennings County. Everybody thought we were going to win. And we get back home, and the first question is, how'd you guys lose a game already? And so that was an opportunity for us to talk about these are the things that you guys said we had to be aware of. They're now coming into play. And so for us, we just keep reminding them of what they told us.
That's really awesome. I think that, one of the topics later on is culture, and I think, that speaks volumes to your guys' culture as a program and what's going on in your locker room, your leadership. As coaches, it's challenging because we can put all these things in place, but you've got to have the right leaders that help sustain it inside your locker room. And clearly you have done a great job with that. So, that kind of rolls us into our next topic as well, peaking at the right time. You can like you just said, Coach Krebs, they were your community was giving you flack for losing early. But that's when you learn your lessons and get better as the season progresses. So, let's just go ahead and keep it with you for a second. And how do you make sure that you're doing the right things throughout your season so that your team is playing their best basketball come tournament time?
If in doubt, rest. I'm just going to be honest, like we do rest a lot right now. 75 minutes from the time they're done stretching, 90 minutes on a long day. You know, if you'd have told me 20 years ago I'd be practicing for 75 minutes, when we got close to turning, I would have went, no way. This is the most important time. I think we underestimate rest. And so one of the things I do to hold myself accountable, usually about once a week, this time of the year, we practice in the morning when I know it's not going to impact us in a negative way because it keeps me accountable because they have to get to class. So it gives me a 75-minute window and it lets our kids see daylight after school. I mean, you will be amazed at what would happen when they can walk outside and it's still light out. It's usually dark when they come to school. It's usually dark when they leave. And so one time a week right now, um, we practice in the morning, get them out where they can just have an afternoon. Um, and we're just focused on us. I mean, even last season with the tourney run, it was all let's just be the best version of us. If we can do that, here's some general concepts that Homestead's going to do, but it's about us. The other thing I did to shorten some of our sessions is I would give the girls each a person from the upcoming opponent that they were going to be guarding, and they did the personnel scouting report on that person and would bring it back to the team and report to everyone. You know, number four, Macy Rigsecker from Northridge, here's what she does. That also keeps them engaged. Um, and now they have ownership. And so this time of the year, we really start to turn that part over to them and get buy-in from them versus us just saying, here's a scouting report, here's what they're going to do. But we basically take care of us and shorten things up. We are who we are at this point of the year. We're not going to change that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I found myself later in my career, we really didn't do a ton on Saturdays. And then if we were fortunate enough to make it beyond sectionals, I started giving them Mondays off, or we would just watch film on Mondays. So, we knew we'd have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of practice. And like you said, 75 minutes, but go hard for that 75 minutes kind of thing. And I felt like I got better focus and better production during the week, and we were sharper for games when just by giving them Mondays off. So, and it was good for me too, honestly, as a coach. Um, but like you said, if you would have told me that earlier in my career, I'd been like, we have to go 6 days a week. So,
Yeah. Yep.
um, so, Coach Connor, what do you have to say about that and getting your team set to peak at the right time?
Yeah, I love everything Coach said. And you as well, as far as, those younger days. And I was very fortunate to have Janice Hurt as one of my varsity assistants. Coach Hurt was a former longtime head coach at Vincennes prior to me. And she would, kind of talk me down. Coach, why are we going so long? Why are we going so long? I'm like, do you not see all the things we got to work on? And I began to listen to Coach after a little while, and things got a little bit better, and I realized there's something to this rest thing, right? I love what Coach said about seeing daylight. I mean, that's such a huge thing. Made myself a mental note, and I shy away from morning practices due to man, I just don't know that we have enough time. But in retrospect, man, he's on to something golden right there. But yeah, the less is more. For us, especially, we're in that stretch. So as you already said, 4 games in 8 days. This week we're Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday again. So we'll be repeating that again. So practices right now. We're going to get in there and just get shots up, continue to stay sharp at the free throw line, and go over as Coach alluded to before, go over game film. But again, it's more about us, right? I mean, we have a conference foe tomorrow, or I'm sorry, Tuesday, in North Posey. Obviously, I'm already thinking game plan for tomorrow as far as in practice, but it's going to be more about us. It's going to be how we're going to handle some things. It's not so much important what they're doing. It's kind of early season, right? In terms of it's really all about us. But that cannot be overstated enough. Fix your stuff, get your kids rest, and you do those two things and keep joy in the locker room and in the gym. Good things can happen.
Awesome. Yep. That joy isn't a very important piece. That buy-in is everything late in the season. Um, Coach McCauley, I'm going to switch it up on you and take you to game planning and adaptability. What do you do differently as you approach postseason, or do you not do anything differently? Is that consistency piece important to you when it comes to scouting and preparation for your opponents?
To me, the consistency is important. As we go to the sectional, I mean, we're very familiar with our sectional opponents. Two of them are local. One of them's a former conference opponent that we just played. Um, During the season, we'll do most of our on-floor scouting, more or less walkthrough, maybe leading up to the sectional, depending on, what our makeup of our JV team is. We might, have them run a little bit more stuff live against us. But, we're also focusing on a lot of what we do, refining what we do. We don't try to overload them with, every set play call, every out of bounds call. We kind of we'll tell them, hey, they're going to run this type of action. And hopefully by this point in time, our kids know if I say, hey, they're going to run this action, they understand how to guard it. But we'll show it to them. We'll go through a scouting report. We'll go through, highlight clips of our opponent as we would normal. But we don't try to overload the mental side of it, where you're just, hammering every little detail in there. You got to trust them to know the stuff that, and the principles that you have taught both offensively and defensively throughout the year. And, then it's the coach's job if you got to make some adjustment, okay, we didn't guard this against this team very well the first time. We have to recognize and make that change. But, we try not to get the kids too far out of routine.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Um, yeah, I think young kids appreciate that consistency. And hopefully, if you've been doing those things throughout the season, that those scouting reports become a little easier, more fine-tuned as you approach the postseason. Um, Coach Varga, I know you're big on culture. You've done a fantastic job on that with your entire career. I just wanted to check in with you and just say, how do you build confidence within your team and avoid complacency? How big of a role do your leaders or your seniors take in helping you with that, especially when you're down the stretch?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds cliche, but when you have your culture, the standard is the standard. And if you don't waver from that, and you're consistent with it, and you're talking about, values and things of that nature of how you're going to do things, and before the season hits, everybody in our program gets a binder that has our pillars of our culture in there. We go over it daily. Um, you know, we, there whether it's there's no finish line or there's different things as far as growth and relationships. We were very big on them, and at the end of the practice we talk about like how did we grow today. What's one thing we got better at, and how'd you help the team today, how'd you help your teammate. What's one positive thing that you did today to make your teammate better. We really try to hit at those at weird times, like it'd be in the locker room and I just ask a question or we'll say something, and and how it goes to our pillar. So I think as you kind of are consistent within your culture, and as we have expert coaches on here way better than I am, but this your standard becomes a standard and it trickles down. And we got guys that I'm implementing a new certain kind of culture this year with Jimtown, but at Washington we always had great senior leadership, whereas they grew up and they started trickling down and teaching the young guys, and a lot of times it would be them coaching in practice and it wouldn't be necessarily us coaching in practice because they were coaching the younger guys. I have times in practice where I'll tell guys my captains, hey, or whoever's in charge of or on the gold team, hey, you go with gold, you're leading the huddle. You lead the huddle, you guys talk about what you guys need to fix. And then Maroon, you go over there, you're leading the huddle. So as much as you can get ownership within your guys to take ownership to the standards you're trying to teach and get them to know them and be familiar with it, it kind of takes on its own identity and goes from there. And I think they buy into some of the slogan stuff, as corny as it is. We had guys buy into the Panther way, and now at Gymtown we talk about Gymtown work. What's the difference between regular work and Gymtown work? And they've kind of bought into that. So as much as you can get them involved in into that process, it kind of takes off itself.
Yeah, good stuff. Sorry, I lost my mouse for a second. Um, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I just want to open it up to you four panelists. If you think back to your younger self, or you think about young coaches today that are approaching their first postseason, what is one message that you wish that you had heard, or that you would like to pass on to these young coaches going into a pretty stressful time of season?
I I would say for me, um, although every possession is important, um, in the postseason, as a coach, don't make every possession point important as far as what um, as your demeanor of talking to them and communicating with them. Um, I remember getting on kids early on in my career when we'd make a silly mistake in the postseason that we should have not made, or we've gone over thousands of times, and then you can sit and watch it trickle down. So I would say, although those possessions are important, you know, um, and you want to win as much, but it has to be a positive experience. Otherwise, you're going to watch things snowball. So, um, everybody wants to win the postseason, but it's not life or death. And the players, when they understand that, they'll be a little bit more freely to, you know, play and not play on such a tight rope or where they feel like they've made a mistake and it's the end of the world. So I know I did that in my earlier in my career, but I've kind of trickled down and seen some success, just, being having a more of an understanding of, they're going to play better if they see me not so tense and myself too. So.
Good stuff.
I think you have to communicate the idea of enjoy it. Whether that be to your kids, to your staff, piggybacking on what Coach said. I know when I was younger, you know, you look at it as you only get one opportunity, and if you don't take advantage of the opportunity, the season's over. And if you put that stress and you put that on the kids, they see it from you. They see it, if you're sweating every little detail, and you can sweat every little detail as a coach. You just got to know how to convey, um, things to your kids, and there's times, in the tense moments, you gotta make a joke. You got to make them laugh. You got to make them smile. And that's on both sides of it. But the sectional is a fun time of year. The state tournament's a fun time of year. And if you get a chance to win a level and move on and make a run, you're making some memories that people are going to remember for a lifetime. And that's what it's about. Is the memories and the experiences and having fun. And because nobody really looks back on it, 25, 30 years later and go, oh, you missed a block out with a minute to go in the sectional final. That they remember the fun part of it. So, telling a young coach, maybe going into the sectional for their first time is, hey, you got to find a way to enjoy it. Yeah, it's stressful, but you know, for yourself, for your kids, find a way to enjoy the experience because it only happens once a year, and you got to make the most of it, when it does come about.
Good stuff. Coach Krebs, Coach Connie, what you got?
I think one of the things we've talked about routine a lot on here tonight, and core, whether it's, your core pillars in terms of your culture, or whether it's your core philosophy in terms of what you want to do. I know, speaking of myself, I made a mistake early in my career at the regional level, where I feared a team too much in terms of, we just changed what we were doing defensively. Um, trying to stop an outstanding basketball player from the perimeter, and I got it kind of out away from what we do, right? And I think that that's something, going back as a young coach, I wish I could do differently that day. Is just go be us. So I guess that would be my advice for young coaches: go be who your team is. By now, we all know what our teams are, what they're capable of, and stay to what your core philosophy is with, that particular team. Obviously it changes depending on what your team is year to year, but by now you know who you are. Just go be you.
That's awesome. Great message. Coach Krebs, bring us home.
I- I'm gonna, I'm a preacher's kid. You guys might not know that, but my father was a pastor for 38 years. So a lot of thoughts from my upbringing come to mind as I coach. And one of the things we talk about all the time is build memorials. And what I mean by that is, if you're familiar with scripture where it talks about the Israelite children were wandering in the wilderness and they were getting ready to cross into the promised land, God parted the Jordan and he told them, one member from each of the 12 tribes, pick up a rock from the middle of the river and carry it across and build a memorial so that when your kids ask you, what is this? You can tell them, this is where God brought us across on dry ground. That's the background of this. But what we do is we build memorials all year long. For example, we go to Jennings County. We go to Brownsburg, lose to Jennings County. The next day, the kids have a golf ball in their locker. And if you don't know the story of a golf ball, um, look it up, because it's just a dent. The more dents we accumulate, the farther we're going to go. It's a memorial. It's something they're going to draw back on later in life. Um, just connect. I get them Lego keychains as a reminder. Just keep connecting. Build relationships and connect. That's a memorial. Something they're going to remember the story of what you were trying to teach them. The more visuals you can give them, the better. And for me as a coach, to go to graduations and now see a golf ball, to see a Lego piece, to me that's why I do what I do. And so, how can we build memorials in the lives of our athletes that they're going to remember the lessons we want them to learn long after they put the ball down? I mean, let's face it, that's why we do what we do. Love sectional, love the tourney, love when it comes to sectional, I keep reminding myself this. When it comes to tourney time, all that, I probably overestimate my ability to coach. I think we probably we have more control over this game than we think, and we really don't have that much control.
Oh,
So don't just let them do what they do. Help them be the best version of themselves. But I think we would all agree we overestimate our ability as coaches to impact the game.
Yeah,
amen, coach.
that's awesome. Uh, that's really great, and that's a great message to wrap us up tonight. So, hey, I just want to say thank you guys so much for sacrificing time during a very busy part of your year to be on here tonight. Our panelists, you were phenomenal. So thank you guys all for being willing to share your experience with everyone. Um, we are almost done with this season. It's crazy to think about. We've got two more emails I'll be sending out, one on February 2nd and one March 2nd. But I just want to say congratulations to all of you guys, regardless of if you're on the girls' side or the boys' side, on what you have accomplished this season and the messages that you are teaching your players and the time that you have sacrificed to be with them. Um, that's the stuff that I remember and think about is the time with my kids. So embrace it, have fun with it, and best of luck to all of you guys as you approach postseason. make the most of it. And we will be checking in with you guys on February 2nd. So thank you guys again. Coach Garrett, what you got?
Hey, Kaylee, I just want to jump in and say what a great addition to IBCA that you've offered. I think it's awesome. It keeps you in touch with the game because you've done a great job moderating all three of these.
Thank you.
And tonight was like the first two, just a lot of gold to mine. So the panelists just really, really well done. And going back to rest, which has been a common theme, the the NABC, did a virtual clinic this fall,
Mhm.
and really, really good stuff. Very similar to what you've done here, Kaylee. But Tara Vandiver, who was a longtime Stanford coach, very, very successful. She literally said that it stuck with me all the time. Rest is not a four-letter word. So as coaches, we can fill up 2 hours every day as far as your practice plan. But so it's just interesting to hear that theme continue tonight with at the high school level. And I think it's so important. But Kaylee, thank you. Thank you for what you've done to put these together. Really, really good stuff.
Appreciate
Really
that.
good choice of panelists too.
Thank you very much. I got to give a shout out to Coach Krebs because this was his idea, and I think it was awesome, Coach Krebs. So,
Very good.
thank you so much for thinking of that and for sharing that idea. And I've really enjoyed these 3 videos. So, thank you guys very much.
It
All
takes
right,
it
guys.
doesn't take a lot of brains to suggest an idea for you to pull it off the way you did. Hats off to you.
Well,
Amazing
thank you.
job.
I appreciate that very much. So, we will have this for you guys on YouTube to check back in if you'd like. And thank you guys. Best of luck the rest of your seasons.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Coach.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Good luck, everyone.
Yep. Good luck.
Watch.